Hello, my name is Jade, and today I'm going to be talking about my November reads. There's so much red going on. I have red makeup, a red shirt, red nails, the lights are red, the candle is red. And like my decorations for Christmas this year, I'm going with like red and pink. So there's just so much red going on. I'm here for the red this year. In my classroom, I decorated like Winter Wonderland, so it's all like blue and silver. So at home, I prefer to do more like red and green, but this year I decided to go with red and pink for some reason. I'm like drawn to pink. That's why I have like a pink light and a few pink things. Now, I did buy a microphone for my camera, but I need an adapter for the camera, so it will be a little while before my audio is better. Sorry. All right, let's get into these books. I read 7 books in November, and I'm really excited to talk about them. The first book that I read in November, I read digitally and then bought the physical copy, and it is a Darcy Coates book. We're gonna be seeing a lot of these. After October, I still wanted to read spooky books, so I read Gallows Hill, and I really liked this book. I did give it 5 stars. In Gallows Hill, we are following Margot, who has just inherited her family's winery on Gallows Hill. She is going there to bury her parents. Her parents died on Gallows Hill, and it's kind of weird how her parents died. Like, they don't really know what happened. And when she went to the morgue, like the expression on her parents' faces was very strange. Like even the person that works in the morgue, I don't know what they're called, thought that like their death was very odd and that their faces looked really weird when they were found. So she is going to try to run the winery with the staff that like all lives on Gallows Hill. And she doesn't really know what she's doing, but she has a good staff that can pretty much run it for her. There have just always been weird deaths in the whole family. People avoid Gallows Hill because they think that the ground is cursed. Convicts were hung on Gallows Hill, and not all of the crimes were like worth being hung for. So people feel that like the ground is bad. She starts to live in the house. Weird things happen in the house, and weird things happen outside of the house too. So it's not like just a haunted house story. We're uncovering the haunting of Gallows Hill. I don't want to talk too much about like the details in the book, but this one is more gross than the Carroll haunt and the haunting of Ashburn House. Like there are some bugs. There's also like rotting flesh kind of stuff in this book. So this one is, I would say, the grossest out of those 3. And it's a creepy story. It's really good. It's very like you're trapped, which I think is a lot of Darcy Coates books. Like you're trapped and you can't escape. And Margot wants to know kind of like what has happened in her family tree. Like why does this keep happening to her family? And like what happened to her parents that their death was really weird? What does the staff know that she doesn't? That was Gallows Hill. I enjoyed it a lot. Very quick read, which from my experience with Darcy Coates books so far is that they're really fast and easy to read. I liked it a lot. I gave it 5 stars. The second book is one that I finished in November, but I think I started this August or September. I don't remember when I started this book, but it is Alice in Wonderland. I hate this cover. I thought I was getting a cooler cover than this one. I got it from thrift books, but whatever. I've always kind of wanted to read Alice in Wonderland because I liked the movies and just like the weirdness of Alice in Wonderland. Like it always intrigued me. The book is even weirder than the movies and makes less sense. And it's not like they're similar, but the like movie is not a complete rip off of the book. There are things in the book that were happening and I was like, wait a second, that wasn't in the movie. It's weird. It's a really weird book. I mean, I feel like everyone knows Alice in Wonderland, so I don't need to talk about it, but I enjoyed the movie more. I'll say that. I did not enjoy reading the book as much. I'm glad I read it so that I know the story a little bit better. After reading the book, I did some research on like Lewis Carroll and like how he came up with this weird book. And I wanted to kind of know his backstory a little bit because there's some speculation that he might not have been a really great guy. I don't know. I'm having such a hard time saying this. I thought the themes that you pick up on the book were interesting. Strange book, even weirder than the movies. I liked the movie more. I can't find my rating on Goodreads. I'm not sure if I actually marked that I read this. I want to say it's a 3.5 star. I don't know, I don't think I enjoyed it enough to be a 4, and it's not a 5. I feel like it's a 3.5. The next book that I read was Crush. It's the second book in the Crave series. I'm not going to talk too much about what the book is about because I don't want to spoil the first one for anyone, but we're continuing to follow Grace's story. She's in a paranormal high school in a castle in Alaska, I think, and there are vampires, werewolves, gargoyles, witches, and they're all in a high school, and it's kind of like, it's supposed to be very similar to Twilight, but I like all the paranormal stuff and that it's not like just vampires or just werewolves. Like there's a lot of other groups in the high school, and you're curious, you want to know what happens to them, but these books just, they're not great. And I don't know that I would like recommend them necessarily unless you really liked like Twilight and you want a different like version of that. I don't know if they're written very similar where they're very silly, because I didn't read Twilight. That's why I'm reading these and not Twilight, because I've seen the Twilight movies, but I don't want to read the books after watching the movies, so I thought I would get a different version, basically. I gave this 3 stars. This story's interesting, but the books just aren't great. But I will say I liked the first one more, so I like this one less. I mean, I almost put it down, and so I don't know if I want to keep going. We'll see. The next one, I'm struggling with the rating for this one, and that is Thunderhead. This is the second book in the Scythe series. I initially rated this a 3, but after sitting with this longer, I think it's 3.5 to a 4 because I keep thinking about it, and I don't know. I'm not going to talk too much about the story because it would spoil the first. Obviously, this is the second book. In this book, we're introduced to more characters than in the first, and I think that's what I didn't like. I preferred to just stick with original characters. This one is also darker than the first. It's quite a bit darker. In the Arc of the Scythe series, we're following scythes. Now they glean people to keep the population down because the world is now perfect. Everything has been cured. There's no disease. There's like barely any crime. You don't die. If you like do die, they call it deadish because they can revive you. It is very eerie and dark. Though the world is perfect, life doesn't have as much meaning, and that's what makes it eerie. And because there is no death, essentially, like people still have to die, but not of natural causes. There are scythes that take care of that. They have a set amount of people that they have to glean like within a month, and there's like data that tells them who to glean. In the Arc of the Scythe, there are good scythes which sounds like kind of funny, but there are good scythes that do their job with honor, and they honor the people that they glean, and they don't take pleasure in it. And then there are scythes that are enjoying gleaning too much, and they want to glean a lot, and they don't honor the people that they glean. So that's a big part of the story. In this book, we're following a new character, 2 new characters in this book, and I didn't care for them as much. But I did like the characters that were in the first. So I liked the first more. I did enjoy the second, but I did not enjoy it as much. I'm still sitting with it. I'm still trying to decide how I feel about this series. I don't know, I feel like I can't love it. I feel like I can't love this series. I don't know, it's weird. But I also think about these books a lot because they're so different and they're so, I don't know, they're so unique to other books. I don't know if I'm gonna read the third. We'll see. But that was the next book that I read. It's in between a 3.5 and a 4. It might be closer to a 4. But the first one was really good. This next book, it's like, this book, I don't know, I love this next book and it's like close to my heart, and that is Red Queen. This book is really battered up. I might get the hardcover of this book because of this, but I did want the original cover. I did listen to Red Queen because I love the narrator that read this book, and I went into this book thinking I probably won't like it. I feel like it was a very hyped up TikTok book, and I just thought, I don't know, it can't be that good. I like it so much. I like it so much that I want it in another edition. This was such a fun read. Okay, for this one, I'm gonna read the back. Mare Barrow's world is divided by blood, those with red and those with silver. Mare and her family are lowly reds, disdained to serve the silver elite whose supernatural abilities make them nearly gods. Mare steals what she can to help her family survive, but a twist of fate leads her to the royal palace itself, where in front of the king and all of his nobles, she discovers an ability she didn't know she had, except her blood is red. To hide this impossibility, the king forces her into a role of a lost silver princess and betroths her to one of his own sons. As Mare is drawn further into the silver world, her actions put into motion a deadly and violent dance, pitting prince against prince and Mare against her own heart. It was really good. It kind of sounds like Red Rising. I haven't read Red Rising yet, but they sound like kind of similar. It's about a repressed people, the Reds. The Reds are the ones that serve. They're the ones that go to war. They're the soldiers. They are seen as, you know, nothings. And the Silvers, they have cool powers. There are some that can like read minds, bend metal, bend fire, water. So they're very powerful beings, and they have silver blood. And Mare discovers that she has power, but she's not a silver or a red. She's something else. I will say, this book was spoiled for me though. I saw on TikTok that if the book is dragging for you, wait until this chapter, and that chapter changes the book. I didn't think this book dragged. Personally, I didn't think it dragged. I was listening to the book and I wanted to find the physical spot, and I opened it up to that chapter, and the first sentence spoiled the book for me. I was like, no, did I actually just see that? Like, I had no idea. So like, I was so upset that the book was spoiled. But I love this book. It holds a special place in my heart. I want it in the hardcover. I am currently listening to the second book, and I'm really liking it as well, but it was just so good. I guess it was hyped up on TikTok for a reason. I gave it 5 stars, in case you couldn't tell. There is a fly that keeps buzzing around my head. It's driving me crazy, and I can't find it. The next book that I read was very good, and it was probably the most challenging book that I've read so far, and that is Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This was a very good read. It was more difficult than like a Darcy Coates or a Riley Sager or Fourth Wing. Like this is more challenging, but it was so worth it. This has been compared to Game of Thrones and the show Vikings. Like, combine those two. I was totally wrong about what this book was about. I kind of gave a brief idea of what the book was about in one of my hauls, and then I started reading. I was like, oh no, never mind. I was very wrong. But I didn't want to know what the book was about. I like to go into books very blind. I don't like to look up lots of reviews because I don't want anything spoiled for me. I started reading this physically and then decided to do some immersion reading. I've never done that before, and that's where you listen to the audiobook and physically read it at the same time. I really like the narrator's voice for this book, and it also made it a lot, some parts easier to understand because a lot of the words are Icelandic, and the names, and there will be sentences that are written in Icelandic, so it can be a little tricky, like the language There's even in the back, there's like a glossary for some of the words and like what they mean, which I thought was really interesting. We're following 3 characters' journey in this book, but one of the characters, which I think she's everyone's favorite, she's basically Agatha from Vikings. She's super cool. She's my favorite. In this book, you have sword fights, battle scenes, shapeshifters. You're following hardcore Vikings. There's also a scene that reminds me a lot of Lord of the Rings, but The Hobbit. A scene in this book reminded me a lot of The Hobbit because of some giant creatures that are fought off. You have trolls that they fight. Like it does kind of remind me a little bit of like Lord of the Rings, and then of course Vikings, because they are Vikings, and like the women are like strong and they're like shield maidens. You have the shield wall, you have axes. Oh, it's so good. In this book, we're following one character who is seeking revenge. We're following our second character who is seeking a place for herself in the world. She doesn't want to rely on her family's name and her father's idea of what she should be. She wants to find her own glory and riches and kind of make it out on her own. Our third character is also kind of seeking revenge. He's kind of seeking the truth. He's learning to be a warrior, whereas our first 2 characters are already like pretty cool. I don't think that gives anything away. I just kind of wanted to talk about what the book is about a little bit in case you're kind of like, should I read that? What is it even about? Because the cover has like a dragon on it and like a little, well, a person here. It is very exciting and it was not what I was expecting. I initially gave it a 4, but I've had to sit with this book because the longer I have been away from this book, I have missed the characters and I really want to know what happens. And that made me feel like it's more than a 4. For me to be that curious and like miss this book, then I feel like it's a 5. Between a 4.5 and a 5. Now this was a more difficult book for me to pick up because I knew I was gonna have to like really focus. This is epic high fantasy, adult fantasy, but sometimes you have to sit with a book to really know how to rate it, and I think it deserves a higher rating than what I initially gave it because I think about this book a lot and I'm really excited to read the next one. The next one is chunkier than this pretty chunky book, so I am kind of nervous, but I'm also excited to continue this. So I do recommend this book if you're looking for high epic fantasy, and John Gwynne is known for his great fantasy books. I do want to try out his other series. I think the first book is Valor. I could be totally wrong. I'll have to look it up, but I do like his writing. It was a good book. Also, the cover is just so cool. I even love the spine, like the colors in the spine. The last book that I read in November was Iron Flame. I love this cover and I really like that I got the sprayed edges. Now, I'm doing a dedicated reading vlog for this book, so I'm not gonna go into depth on what I thought of the book because I'm gonna save that for the vlog, and there will be spoilers at the end of that vlog on what I really felt about the book that would definitely spoil it. However, what I will say is that this is not a 5 for me. Fourth Wing was better, but what I just will say that I do have some issues with this book because it followed Fourth Wing, and I know I'm not alone in that. So look out for that video if it's not already out. If you are curious to know what I thought of Iron Flame, I do love the cover though. So that is the last of the books for November. Here is my reading stack. This stack has some really important books to me, so I'm really happy with November. In fact, I don't think that like any of these books were disappointing. Like I didn't have a book this month that I did not like. Just some I did not like as much as others, but in other months I've had books I didn't like at all. So I'm really happy with the month of November. I had a really good time. Yeah, I'm just very excited for December. I've already been reading and enjoying some books, so Thanks so much for hanging out with me while I talk about my November reads. Don't forget to check out my Iron Flame vlog. I would love it if you could like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.